Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is the first session formally of Signal, which is a summer series by the University of Dubai's Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Business Center. So I'm just going to give you a little bit context about what we're trying to do with Signal here, and then we'll get right into the session with David, right? So our goal with Signal, which will be a platform for online webinars, chats, and panels, is to sort of surface sharp and future-ready insights from business leaders and leaders in the sense of intersection of business, tech, and society, right? Today, we're launching this series, which what I feel is a very sort of need of the hour and timely topic, which is the future of workforce in the AI era, specifically looking at skills and human capital. The workforce, as we've sort of come to know it, is rapidly evolving. And today's session, I hope, doesn't only talk about the disruptive mechanism of AI in hiring and HR, such as things like we know ATS tracking, but also looks at AI in terms of careers, talents, and how we can really be job ready, right? So thank you for those of you who've already joined in. First sort of day in the week, and we're sort of in the middle of the year. So it's really a nice time to sit down and reflect, take account of how workforce is changing around us. So before I get started, just a little bit context. We're gonna run this session. I'm going to sort of moderate it, and David is going to lead it with his experience in the fields of AI and human resource and workforces, right? We also did have Bart from Refocus AI that was supposed to join this session today, but unfortunately he is under the weather and wouldn't be able to make it. But we're going along and we're hoping to get a lot of interaction from your end as well. And talk about this topic that we're all very passionate about. So I'm going to dive right into it by introducing David to start with. And David, please feel free to chime in after the introduction or during it. I think you'll do a better job than me. But I met David at a sort of youth conference, and it was such a good meeting and interaction. And I learned there that he is a leader, not only in AI, something that we've been talking about greatly in the past few years, but in, workforce and understanding human capital and its unique needs, right? And he's done this not only in the Middle East, but also in Europe and Africa. So David's been doing this for 25 plus years. Wears multiple hats, but sort of his primary focus is being the co-founder of Augmented Workforce, his company, that focuses on optimizing people, data, and tech to really build agile and future-ready teams, right? He's led 8+ mergers and acquisitions. I think one of them was about 1,100 plus people. So David's your guy when it comes to all things people and management. And yeah, I will leave the floor to David. And if you would like to add in anything, David.
I think you did a great job introducing me. Thank you so much. And you said like I met him and he was more introduced as an AI professional. So my background, I used to be HR in technology. So I worked for companies like IBM, Cognos. IBM acquired us, one of the large M&A activities. And then back in 2019, or actually 2018, I started realizing that technology starts playing a very important role in the way we work. Even before ChatGPT was a thing, kind of. And so I decided to co-found together with a business partner Augmented Workforce, and we're all now about people, data, and technology. So our initial slogan, and we're going to change that, was automation made human. I think right now with the AI, we need to update our slogan, so we will do that. But we're all about people, data, and tech, and we kind of like very quickly, because this is not a sales pitch, obviously. What we do is we on the tech side, I represent different technology companies. So if I promote something, that might be because I'm representing it, but normally I'm very objective. We build solutions, AI-based solutions, and I do a lot of keynotes and workshops and clinics where I literally ask people to bring their laptops, and we do something what we call applied AI. It's nice to talk about AI, but it's even better to do AI. So that's a kind of like my slogan. And yes, it's all with the belief that AI will augment the workforce, and we will get deeper into that point. Back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David. I think you've also posted your LinkedIn in the chat, and if they scan the QR code, they can read more about your profile. And before I go, I sort of have a rapid fire sort of round of questions I want to do with you. But before I even go into that, I want to turn it to the audience and just get a little bit of interaction going, wherein you guys can join the Slido code and just scan the QR code, and it's anonymous, so you don't have to feel any pressure of what you're saying, but try to think a little bit more objectively, subjectively, whatever you're comfortable with, which is the first question I want to sort of set the base and tone of the session with is, what do you most commonly use AI for? There's literally no right or wrong answer. It's a personal use case. So what is your personal use case when it comes to maybe your workplace? If you're a student, then in academia, what do you use AI for? We'll just leave that there for 30 seconds. And David, you can sort of respond to things that are coming in as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm curious. Brainstorming, very good. Uh, Brainstorming with AI or use AI to brainstorm. Research, absolutely. I mean, I guess a lot of people are using AI right now. And by the way, even if you have a mobile phone, you probably have already AI into
yeah.
it. Okay. And consolidated answers, very good. Drafting with the materials, education, career exploration, career planning. Okay,
Thank you.
very good. It looks like we have an audience that at least is experienced with AI to a certain degree. So very good.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good starting point. So I'm going to use that as a starting point, and then from the audience, I want to turn it around to you a little
Yeah.
bit. And these are going to be sort of 5 or 6 very rapid fire sort of questions and answers. So be honest and be quick, and then we'll get into the session, right?
All
So
right.
one thing I want to sort of start out with is, what is one skill you believe will never go out of style, no matter how advanced AI gets?
Hmm. Um, it's not necessarily a skill, but more like a trait. That's
Sure.
And that's curiosity. I think curiosity brought us where we are today, and curiosity really brings us beyond that. So I believe being curious is one of the key traits that you need to have in order to move forward.
Amazing, thanks. And more on the work style then, remote, hybrid, fully in office. What's sort of your sweet spot of productivity?
Ah, this is we do so I run a one of the things that we didn't really mention in the intro is I manage a lot of communities, professional
Sure.
communities in HR and in AI and combinations of them. And this question comes up a lot. I think after COVID, we all thought that we would completely work remotely, and there are
Yeah,
some organizations that completely work remotely. The problem is that it's hard to build culture over a digital line, if that makes sense. So for me, the sweet spot is probably I always said way before that the office becomes like a place to meet because you can work from
mm,
anywhere. And I
yeah,
believe there's still value in working. So the sweet spot for me is about 2 or 3 days a week where you kind of like meet face to face other people. And then
sure.
the other 2 to 3 days you can work remotely. But it can also be a period of time where you can kind of like when you work on a project, very dedicated, of course, that's your focus time. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for that. And this is a little bit more dystopian, but if we were in a world where you could implant one skill only in every graduating person that graduates from university, you spoke about curiosity as a trait, but if you had to put in one skill in every person, what would that one skill be?
Hmm. I'm still kind of like it's not really a skill, but the other one is the daring part. I believe
Okay.
read a lot of books about how people get further, and if you look at it, even the richest man on earth,
Yeah,
Elon Musk, one thing that he has is like this tremendous daring spirit, and even if you look at other people like um, um, Richard Branson, exactly the same in a different way, but exactly the same. Daring is
sure.
something that I don't know how you can instill it. Probably by giving people more how do you say it, confidence.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think risk taking is a skill
Yeah.
that we can actually build by controlling it a little bit and increasing our confidence and our bandwidth to take risks, right? So I think that's an interesting one. This one's actually something I want to know from you for sure, which is what's one buzzword in the future of work and AI space that you secretly wish just disappeared and you've heard enough of?
AI.
Just
I'm
AI.
serious about this one. Like one of the
Yeah,
first questions I always ask is, what is AI? And maybe this is, if this is your question to make a bridge.
yeah,
Normally I ask the audience, and then some people are very smart. They say artificial intelligence. Ha ha ha.
yeah,
But I knew that.
yeah,
But the thing is, it's really an umbrella of a lot of things. And when you look at where you really see mainly in the workspace space, what has an impact, obviously generative AI,
sure,
especially after the release of ChatGPT 3.5. Um, People are all using it in that sense. 4.0 is really powerful. Um, so that's one. But the other one that already exists way longer is something called predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics.
yeah,
And that is a kind of like that's AI by itself. And that's where I believe that when we talk about AI at work, that goes beyond creating nice pictures that you can put on your Instagram or videos that you can make for maybe TikTok. No, these are the two things
mm,
that I believe are really matter for business in that sense.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. I think we'll jump right into your content then from talking about different types of analytics and
Yeah.
AI formats. Feel free to prompt me when to change the slides, but I'm just going to get into your
Yeah,
content.
what I wanted to suggest is also we have a chat.
Yep,
So
yep,
maybe if people have questions, just to put it in the chat. Of course, you can also raise we're not a massive group, so you can also raise your voice or raise your hand or whatever. But don't be don't be afraid, don't be shy, be daring to ask these questions. All
thank
right.
you. No,
I want to, before we go a bit deeper, I want to kind of like everybody's talking right now about agentic AI. So when I do a keynote, I always try to break down things in simple ways. So when we talk about agentic AI, I normally ask the question in the audience. Actually, I would love to know if anyone wants to put an answer there. What is agentic AI? I wouldn't mind. Um, See if anyone is daring enough. Okay, not yet, I guess. So one of the ways I explain it is kind of like with these two slides. So I hope that I don't insult anyone working for that particular bank, but I always say, especially with the people who live in Dubai, do we remember Eva? Eva was a kind of like a chatbot. Um, the chatbot was based on rules. So basically meaning like if you were banking with Eva, you often got stuck into you wanted to ask her something that was not in her structure, in her rules, and the answer that you got was just only based on her rules as well. It was her rules. You couldn't ask her anything. So this is the typical rule-based chatbot. And unfortunately, for a lot of companies that were early adapters in chatbots, that's kind of like didn't really work very well. What we see nowadays is that a large language model, what is kind of like ChatGPT, is a large language model. A lot of bots are based on a large language model or what we call a specialized language model. And so that means like they can answer far more, um, uh, not only questions, it can kind of like understand context far better and can give a better answer based on that context. So it's based on generative AI. The next kind of like iteration of an agent has been the copilot. So Microsoft promised everyone that we would have a buddy that will do things along with us, for us, etc. I don't think that that translation has fully worked out yet, but the concept is there. So the next thing that we have is, and that is coming up. I mean, it's not really there yet. I mean, some companies are claiming it, but it's definitely on the way. It's called multi-agent systems. And multi-agent systems kind of like is probably the main step that we have to take to get to what you can call agentic AI. And what is agentic AI in principle? something that we're all doing right now, or most of us are doing right now, is prompting. I can guarantee that prompting will be something of the past. Not today, not tomorrow, but within the next few years. And AI will kind of like, instead of us prompting AI to do something, it will do something far, far more independent and by itself and can play a role versus doing a task. And if we can go to the next slide, um, yes. I don't know if anyone is here, of course, with a background into consulting, but let me quickly explain what a team model means in consulting. So in consulting, there is a theory, and I use the word for IBM, but I also know Accenture is using it and a lot of other ones. It's like if you are a consultant, you can you need to have a lot of generic knowledge of different industries so that you can be placed in with different clients. And as a consultant, you also need to have a certain depth in a particular field. You need to be specialized in something really good in something in order to be of value for a client. I mean, being only a generalist is not enough. So if we make some comparisons, so think about, let me take an example out of the real world. Think about the medical or the healthcare industry. So when you look at what would be the generalist, the one that kind of like has the horizontal layer, the breadth of knowledge in the healthcare industry, basically that's your GP. Your GP is supposed to know a lot from a lot of different, or not a lot, but know something of a lot of different things that might be wrong with you when when you feel sick or whatever is happening. But then I always ask the question like, would you like to get your heart surgery done by the GP? Um, I haven't, I ask this always in every meetup. Nobody will raise their hands, obviously not, because you need to be a specialist to do so. And so if we look at the same analogy as like in AI, is that the GP is your large language model. That is your chat GPT that has knowledge of a lot of different things. What you will see, or what we have seen, is, for example, somebody wrote research. A very good specialized model in research is Perplexity. Perplexity is used a lot because it refers directly back to the source, so it's more controllable, transparent, etc. So something like Perplexity is the specialist. It's a specialized language model, but even in your organization, you can have your own language model. Even beyond that, if you go to ChatGPT, and I'm sure many of you have tried it, like you can create your own chatbot, your own, because in the end, ChatGPT is still kind of like a chatbot. You need to prompt it and it gives an answer. Um, you can build that yourself. So then the next question is, if we are still going back to the hospital environment, like we had the GP, we had the specialist doctor, what would be your multi-agent system that we just talked about? Well, that's the hospital itself. Because when you really think about it, and that's the difference, is if you have a car accident or you're found on the street unconscious, you're pushed into the hospital, you don't need to prompt anyone. They know what to do. There's a system working together of specialist and generalist. And that's a multi-agent system. And the reason why it's so powerful, it's like the same as sometimes I compare it to the organization. It's the team of different skill sets that basically works together. And that's the same in AI. Your specialized AI, there's AI specialized, for example, in research. There's AI specialized in kind of like models specialized in making decision-making models. Kind of like all these models working together. That's the power that we're getting to in terms of multi-agent systems, and that will lead to what we call agentic AI in the full space. Any questions before we move to one of the other topics? Simran, anything from your side?
No, I think it's I think the consulting example is a great one, and it also I think sort of puts things into perspective of when in your career can you become a generalist or a specialist. Sort of sometimes people start by becoming generalists and seeing, at least for consulting, that's the case, right? So it's interesting to see
Yeah.
maybe even in AI people who want to sort of start by, becoming a generalist and then sort of going into specialization. Same thing in medicine, I think, as well. So it's a matter of maybe progression as well that we can keep
Yeah.
in mind.
Well, it's also something, thank you for bringing that up. It's also something to say about the T model is a kind of like sometimes I say it's getting a bit outdated. And what I mean is my eldest son was studying basically coding. Coding is getting outdated by generative AI. Generative AI can code at least as good almost as most of the coders, at least for way faster. So I believe that if you look at, I don't know how many people here are students or young professionals here on the call, but I would recommend to have at least two vertical layers, two areas where you would have depth of expertise, because otherwise you end up only being a generalist, what kind of like makes you vulnerable as well.
Yeah,
Picking out, having an edge is really important. And yeah, the predictability of what would be a relevant uh, level of expertise in a certain field, that moment is way shorter. When you really think about probably your grandparents and your great grandparents, if they would be good in carpentry, um,
yeah.
that probably will had lasted for another 100 years. People still needed people that can work with wood and build something. And now that is rapidly changing. So I would definitely recommend to have a double vertical in that sense. So yeah, but
Sure.
the model you can use it indeed also to explain how it works with AI and agentic AI.
Yeah,
Thank you.
lovely. I think we can go forward with this is interesting. So I'd love to hear more about this from you.
Yeah, this is kind of like this is projecting towards like what is going to happen in the future. So if you look at where we are today, we're all kind of like augmenting, adopting AI in our work. So that's all cool. We do things faster, better. We we try to save cost, or anyway, we were just augmenting our work with AI. When the point is adoption is nice, but actually I really would, especially the people that are more entrepreneurial, I really would like them to think beyond that. What I mean is like the future will not be AI adoption. The reason is because all the organizations are going to adopt AI. So it's a kind of like we all start doing things faster and better, so it's a kind of like AI against AI, if that makes sense. What needs to happen, or what needs to happen if you really want to kind of like make a difference in the world, then you probably have to think like, what can I do different with AI? Something that I could never do before. And you can make an analogy, for example, with the internet. When the internet came, certain things became easier. We easier could find directions, and we could easier find names and telephone numbers or whatever you did with the internet. But the real game changers were the companies like Amazon. Amazon cannot exist without this model of internet and being connected. And Uber, all these companies, they really reshaped the business. They innovated something that could never exist before. And in AI, we call it AI adoption. How can you reshape your business model around AI capabilities? And this is something that I'm really passionate about as well. Like, okay, let's start with adopting, but start thinking about adaptation, because that's really the main game changer.
No, that's amazing. I think it's a distinct sort of distinct difference that we should take note of. And sort of, I know you have a few very interesting case studies to speak about, but before we go into that, just to hear from the participants and audience a little bit as well, right? talking about companies and industries, you can keep it more industry focused. So, what is one mindset shift you think you or your company or industry needs to make around AI? Any thoughts would be appreciated before we go into the case studies and David sort of shares more outcome-based results. I can sort of start as well till we get someone to type in. Is I work a lot with startups, and I know David, I was speaking to you about this. I think one thing, maybe it's a mindset shift, or maybe it's just sort of a mechanism shift that I feel startups should be making, is investing in AI tools for their employees. So I think whether it's a small or a big budget, it doesn't really matter, but budgeting for AI experimentation is something that startups might benefit from doing.
Okay. I think one person is typing or very well.
Yeah,
Or they have to think about it. But
I
maybe
yeah.
a bit
Sorry, I
about,
think we have one in chat. Maybe the tool isn't working the best. So we have one from Tanvi which says, move away from fear-based thinking instead of worrying about AI taking jobs, focus on how it can help people do their jobs better.
yeah, very good point, Tanvi. Um, so first of all, uh, like when you think about fear and what does fear do with you in times of change. So what happened to me, personal story was that back in 2007, end of 2007, I think early 2008, IBM decided to acquire the company I worked for. It was a company called Cognos in the business intelligence space. And I was in HR and I was on vacation reading a book called Winning of Jack Welch. He's the former CEO of General Electric. And he had this chapter to say, like, so my first thought when IBM announced the acquisition was like, okay, I lose my job because IBM has a massive amount of HR professionals. They don't need me, right? Like maybe a month, 2 months, and then I'm out of here. So I have to rethink what I'm going to do next. And when I read the book of Jack Welch, he said, like, listen, if you get acquired by another company, you have three options. One is you don't like it, you fight it, you resist it. The second option is you don't do anything, you just stay put. The third option you have, you embrace it. And then, of course, the most logical question is what would probably generate the best result? And very simple is to embrace it. And I think it's a little bit with AI the same way. Like, start using it, start embracing it. You can, I mean, it's very easy, it's very accessible, luckily enough for everyone. You don't need to have a coding background. You don't need to have a data science background in order to use it for analytics, data analytics. So start using it. That's actually one of the things that I do. Every workshop that I do with the leadership team, I want them to bring their laptops. We start using it for analytical purposes to become more data driven. So we use the likes of ChatGPT 4.0 Omni or Julius AI. There are free versions that you can use. We use it for creating avatar-based videos, and people walk away being able to do something. And the interesting part of AI is also you can buy complex systems that are for your organization. But the reality is there's so much on the market. You can actually build a lot of things yourself. There's a kind of like a DIY. We even build as an organization, we build workflows with different tools and you combine them and you have something new. And I think that's really good. I see we get more more comments in, isn't it? So
Yes, please, if you'd like to respond to a few.
yeah. So yeah, Tanvi, I agree. Like we shouldn't worry about AI. Nobody knows the future. I don't know if AI will ever take away all the jobs. Maybe we should rethink things like the amount of hours that we work. I mean, 40 hours a week is also invented by people. Maybe we can change that, but like at least the best option you have is to embrace it. If you're not a coach or mentor, it's vital that the human element is not lost. The data mining aspect that links with all the intelligence, emotional, cultural, and social creativity. My concern is the cultural and gender bias that has to be considered. Okay, I hope I understand the comment and question. It's a bit of a comment and a question, I think. I hope I understand it well. First of all, when it comes to bias, let me start with the last part. Um, more, AI by itself is not biased. It's the data that it's trained upon that is biased. Although you read a lot of kind of like stories now about AI going rogue and trying to survive and kind of like, I think in general, nobody believes them at this stage. It's more like, for example, what happened with Amazon. That's a public one that they know. Like they used AI to select candidates, and they found out after some time that candidates that were selected with the help of AI for the company were predominantly male and white, and that was because they used the data the data that they used to train the model on was biased already because a lot of managers had this preference for white male candidates. This is where you still need your context and your human intelligence because we know that that's the wrong outcome. Despite that the data told us A, but that data that was in the context that it was collected and the current kind of like situation, everybody could know that that was wrong. Um, when you talk about selection, so one of the things that I always say to talent acquisition professionals is like there is a lot that you can do with AI, and talent acquisition is largely a lot of companies are using AI, and we'll get to the use cases as well. Um, what is the most hardest part is, for example, the cultural match, because there's a contradiction in cultural match. If you have too many people fitting your culture, you get a monoculture, and that's not very productive. And if you hire people that are completely not fitting in your culture, you have a chaos as well. So this is where emotional intelligence is still yeah, there is still a very important role to play as human beings for the time being, at least. Um, Interesting. Next one. Thinking of more possibilities of adapting AI tools in construction. I actually got a use case, but we haven't solved it yet from a construction company, very large one in Dubai, where we're hiring people out of different parts of mainly South Asia, and they didn't want to send their talent acquisition teams to assess if people had the
Mm,
building skills to build blocks. So we are looking at a solution with computer vision and see how we can analyze it, but it's not easy against an affordable price, etc., to build it. So, but there are definitely a lot of AI tools in construction. I mean, the way same way as your app, your latest versions of your iPhones already have got this little sensor, and you can actually measure your room with your phone, like the distances.
yeah,
Yeah, they're like the same way in construction. There are so many tools that you can think of. Um,
yeah, sort of augmented reality and things like that come into play as
yeah,
well, right? Yeah, okay, perfect. And I think we have the last one, which sounds more like a student-led sort of understanding as well, which is make it as a priority to enable the employees with AI tools that are related to their majors.
how do I understand this? Make it a priority to enable the employees with AI tools that are okay. So, for example, if you are, let's say, a finance, your major was in finance, then you should make it a priority to provide the AI tools that are related to finance if you get to the workspace. Yeah, fully agree with that. There is something else, but then we will go too deep, and I think it's part of one of your
Yeah,
questions
yeah,
about Gen
perfect.
Z.
That's
So we will get there.
exactly.
Yeah.
we'll get there. So just cognizant of time, we'll get into the case study bit. And if we can spend about a few minutes, just 5 to 6 minutes discussing these, and then we'll go into the questions and answers as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's good. I will quickly do that. So this is the first one is something that I literally experienced when I was with IBM. So IBM was one of the first companies to start using predictive analytics to predict attrition. So one of the challenges that IBM had was that they were going to massive transformation. If um, people used to say when I worked for IBM is, oh, you have laptops, and the laptop division was already sold a long time ago to Lenovo. IBM was no longer about laptops. Then the server business disappeared with the introduction of cloud, and um, basically one of the challenges was that IBM had to transform from a traditional IT company to a AI company with the help of Watson. And for that reason, they needed to make sure that they were keeping the people that they needed for the future, while also, to be honest, like reducing the workforce. So what they did was they created a model to start predicting who potentially would leave. Um, so basically, and they use different criteria, as you can see here, like length of time, release score. So that's what kind of based on data science they did it. Then they started prescribing things. So I can tell firsthand, I got spreadsheets sent to me, like how much somebody should get salary increase because we think that the person is going to leave. The first months that we got, and we're talking about probably 2011, 2012, somewhere in that space, they were crap. So excuse my language, but they were just crap. Like it didn't make sense. But the model became better and better. And by now, IBM has a model that has a 95% accuracy in predicting who's going to leave the company. So that's extremely high, actually. Prediction of 95% is very high. And that led to a 30% reduction in unwanted attrition. And that saved about 300 million in terms of like the retention costs and the replacement. So 300 million is, even though if you're talking about a company that is billions and billions of turnover, but it's a lot of money that you can save. So this is a good example where basically AI, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics actually led to a better control of a large company and cost saving. The other one that's I want to talk about is like with a big bank here in the region. What I really enjoy of the bank is that they in their talent acquisition team for the Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey region, one of the challenges they had was two things. It was hard to find um, investment bankers. So there are not so many good ones. And of course, you want to hire the good ones. The second part is amortization. So the central bank puts a lot of requirements when it comes to amortization, and the more UE nationals you hire, the more you are supposed to hire moving forward. So it becomes more and more difficult. So what they did, they used AI, mainly analytics, to analyze the total addressable pool. So they managed to identify a pool of 7,500 UE national candidates with a background that can potentially fit or did already fit investment banking. And they also used a lot of AI to streamline the process. So they used robotic interviewing, like with HireVue. They used all kind of tools to kind of like make it easier to communicate with candidates. And based on that, what most companies would do then is like, okay, if we have this, then we can reduce the TA team. They didn't reduce the TA team, despite that they were able to do it faster. What they did is they literally sent out the TA team to go for more coffee. So they send them out of the office and have meetings with candidates. So this is a kind of like where you get creative in terms of like, if AI can augment my work, what can I do more? What can I do better? Because that's your responsibility. No manager, no CEO once you kind of like you start using AI to kind of like say, okay, I don't need to work on Thursday and Friday because like AI does my work. No, you need to think beyond that. If you want to kind of like have a long-term career or have a good job or kind of like continue to make money, you need to think what can I do next. And I think that's HFC did it very successfully. And the way they measure that is, for example, actively engagement. So they reached 70% of that pool was actively engaged with HSBC on LinkedIn. And in the end, the big kind of like business driver for AI was that it led to um, basically faster and better hiring. So I think it's another really, really good example. The last example that I want to give of the region, and this is also reality, is I believe, and when you look at AI, where I see massive options outside of kind of like more the production processes, logistics, finance, more in the HR space, I see coaching. Although there's always a human element, but I believe in kind of like to democratize coaching is great because a good coach can cost up to $1,000 an hour. Not every employer, not everyone can afford $1,000 an hour. So if you can democratize it with AI, you can do role playing, you can get personalized feedback. That's great, and also in performance management. So what did this particular developer did was they used two tools. One was a tool called Synthesis. No, actually, they used HeyGen. HeyGen for content, learning content based on avatars. So very interactive avatars, so that people kind of like could really. They used interactive avatars and they used it also for avatar-based videos combined with kind of like inputs from also again with AI generated inputs about scripts and these kind of things. And they use the same scripts to work with a tool called Sell Me This Pen. Sell Me This Pen was a technique that was used in training to say, okay, if you can do cold calling, sell me this pen. Tell me why I should buy this pen. So this tool actually what it does is it does role playing, but it connects with your customer relationship management system. So it tells you how you're doing and with even the calls that you're making. So it listens in and gives you personalized feedback. For this particular developer, it meant like they were able to grow faster and they were able to replace faster in case people left. And it had a massive impact on the success of the organization. The team that wasn't so much embracing got into a bit of a troubled situation. It was the sales training department. And this is where I
Mm.
always say, like, even if you feel like it's a threat, just embrace it. In the end, you will find new opportunities, things that you can do in addition to what AI can do for you. Let me stop here.
Certainly. No, and I love that because two things that stood out to me is I've always looked at hire review from a candidate lens. So it's interesting you bring up how a company looks at it as well and how it sort of is embedded those sort of tools from the company lens. And I think a lot of startups, especially and entrepreneurs who maybe don't have access to training, sales training teams or work on more lean models, right? I think things like sell me this pen, I know that if I want to just practice my sales pitch as a sort of skill to build as well, I should have access to tools like that. I'm sure there's many other tools as well that will prop up. So it's interesting you bring those examples in. And moving from there is sort of, I'm just going to leave the slide on there while I ask you some questions, which is we've put down some like maybe three quotes that sort of prop up a lot when people talk about the state of AI and the workforce, which is AI should not just automate hiring, it should help uncover hidden potential. The second one is don't try to master every AI tool, focus on learning the one that helps you do your job better. And the third is AI doesn't take your job, but someone using it better might. So controversial statements, there's obviously positive and negative sides to both, and there's strong opinions. But while we discuss this, maybe you can bring aspects in of these statements in the questions I ask you. And I'll start by asking you questions. And also, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature or raise your hand, as David mentioned, and we can oscillate between my questions and the audience questions, right? So I think the first one I wanted to talk about is it relates to the sort of coaching question that was brought up as well, which is we often speak about human connection and community in the context of AI. And I know you brought this up during your experience and today's talk as well. How do you ensure that these AI tools that we talk about amplify this human connection rather than subside them in organizations?
Right. Well, so first of all, AI can help with building communities, but that's outside of the organization, but even inside the organization, by easier making accessible knowledge. Like if you build your own AI chatbot, what a lot of companies are doing right now with knowledge in the organization, you kind of like build that community feel, etc. The other question was more like, how do we keep the human element into it? For me, the human element remains always very important. I believe in a kind of like, for the time being, at least a very hybrid environment. And just to give you an example on that one, when I spoke back in 2019 on a conference and about AI, etc., like a person came to me and he says, "Listen, can you give me an advice what my daughter should do? Should she start studying coding? Because everything seems to be about coding right now. Or she loves the sailing school that we have, and should she continue with the sailing school?" And I said, well, if you look at it, sailing is by far no longer is no longer needed for transport. There is no sailing ships going with transporting people or goods from one point to another. But we like these analog experiences, and so if you ask me what is the most sustainable job, it's probably a job where you work directly with people and where you kind of like engage with people in that way. And that's where I would say, if you look at um, where is the future for humans to kind of like work, it's probably working with people, with other people. In the end, it's still, we like to look at people, we like to work with people, we like to talk to people. We can do every meeting virtual, but we still love to do also face to face. So yes, that's how I see it, and that's how you should look at it in the workplace as well.
Amazing. No, thank you for that. And then sort of moving to the startup environment, right? This is sort of a hypothetical if you were 25 and building a very lean team, right? Just three people in your startup team today. What blend of skills or traits would you prioritize, not just for execution, but for future proofing? It doesn't necessarily need to be only around AI, but for future proofing sort of your startup mechanisms.
Okay. Um, the one that I come back that I kind of like gave away from the start is curiosity.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, that's probably one of the number one traits. In terms of skills, I would definitely focus a lot on people skills. So the curiosity
great.
helps you to manage your AI and these kind of things. But like in order to add more value, your people skills will remain something very important. So communication, empathy, all these kind of elements are will remain very important. And the third one is more like a personal one. I believe that structure still remains very important. I always struggle with people that don't at least try to bring in some structure in the way. It's good to be creative, and creativity
Yeah,
is absolutely needed. And that kind of like goes a little bit hand in hand with curiosity as well. But you also need to kind of like structure. And now with AI, you can be so easily structured. I use my remarkable all the time. It's not really AI, but it's tech, and
yeah,
kind of the structure remains important. So, and especially in a startup, like yes, it feels like that you don't really need it because you're often sitting opposite to each other. You talk all the time. You're maybe with three or four people. But if you don't bring that structure into that environment, maybe with the help of AI, you have so many beautiful tools, you
yeah,
can like you easily lose track. And you often see companies failing when they reach, for example, 50 or 100 people, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. You're no longer in the same room. People kind of like get disconnected. So start early by being structured in that sense. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think organization and structure is a key skill in the workplace and also individually, right? How you manage your own time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a big one you take to your personal life as well. And then from your experience, I mean, I think we touched upon this about like a little bit about the university majors and things like that, right? Is when we talk about academia and universities, there's still a bridge between what academia teaches you and what the future of work looks like and what it demands, right? And for those students that have tuned in today, how can students as individuals away from their institutions for a second sort of focus on crossing that bridge in their own learning and their own time using their own resources?
Okay. Um, we met during events that was very focused on Gen Z, and
Right.
the organization that organized that was born out of frustration of the disconnect or the difficult part of kind of like entering the workforce. And I think we need to acknowledge that the current generation entering the workforce it's more difficult for them than it maybe was for me or for generations before. And I think there is a kind of like a how do you say it, the responsibility on different sides. I think on one side, we need to accept my dad was 15 when he entered the workforce. There's no one that can find a job at the age of 15 and sustain that for a long period of time. Um, these manual jobs, they're no longer there. So that doesn't really, so we need to accept that probably it takes a little bit longer before you're ready to really enter the workforce. And then the reality is also for Gen Z and Gen Alpha is that AI will take a lot of these starter jobs. Um, Believe it or not, my first job was kind of like collecting stamps on Forbes. That was kind of like that was, but I learned a lot about the organization, how people work, how people kind of like are, how politics work, all these kind of things. And it's a kind of like it's important to learn that. And you need that in an organization to, for example, be a manager, be a leader. You need to learn how an organization works. I believe that the universities should play a role, maybe combined with work. So there's in Germany a system where you work 2 or 3 days a week, and then you go, you still study. So the university is still giving you the tools and the preparation to grow. I believe that such a model would be really good to introduce. So that's more on the macroeconomic side, if that makes sense. And for companies, the benefit is that you still create a pipeline of candidates that you can place in roles that you actually need. But on an individual level, um, books are outdated about AI, for example. They're outdated before they even are published. That's a reality. It's very hard even for universities to keep up in that sense. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I learn a lot from following certain people on the likes of LinkedIn, Instagram. I speak a lot with people. I go to meetups. I hear what other people are doing, using, etc. I think we need to become more creative in the way we learn. And if we combine all of that, then I think you will definitely have a better chance of getting that position to start and to move forward upwards and
Sure. And I
further.
mean, just by our meeting as well, I would add to that and say that Dubai is so full of so many communities that are always happy to show up for each other if there's a shared topic of interest or shared value system, right? I mean, we met at one event and this session came from there, right? So it's
Sure.
the like you said, maybe a little bit of courage, a little bit of confidence when you go to people and just ask them questions and ask them for their time. In all likelihood, people are very experts are willing to share their time and their resources more than we think sitting in our rooms, right? So I think asking the right questions and just having the courage to ask those questions is something that I completely agree with, and I've sort of been experiencing myself now. So I think we're almost done with the session, but I'm hoping if there's any questions, maybe we still have a few minutes, just a few minutes. If there's any questions, guys, please feel free to post them on the chat. I know we covered a little bit of startups, a little bit of students and young professionals in our questions as well. But any questions, please do post them for David. You can also connect with him on LinkedIn to see more of his material, what kind of work he does, and read about his expertise.
Yeah, there was one comment or question from Nicola. You have been very active, Nicola. So maybe if you want to unmute yourself. Thanks for being so engaged. Maybe if you can How to connect with David, you other than LinkedIn. Okay, I think somewhere in the slide there was some barcodes, but drop me a line on LinkedIn and you can connect in a different way. But maybe you want to ask your question that you had, Nicola, in the chat. Shukran. Okay.
Perfect. I think we're
Nicola is there.
okay. Yay. Amazing.
That I heard about you like about 6:10 because a very, very good friend of mine, Sarah Shaw from Majra, sent me the link, and I've been spreading it out in the first 10 or 15 minutes. Such a shame not to have known about this before. Thank you so much, both of you, all of you. The human element is critical. It's absolutely critical. And I love what you were saying about the people things and working with people. The biggest thing for me and my passion is effecting change, making a difference. So coaching, mentoring, organizational behavior and stuff like that. And although I'm not wild about AI, I can see the benefits as long as it's not biased. And we ourselves have so much bias, and how to get rid of those halos and horns. And I would love to connect with you. I'm not in Dubai, I'm in Ras Al Khaimah, and I've watched UAE change since 1995. So it's very exciting times, and but we need to manage it like we need to manage our credit cards and our social media and our LinkedIn account. So I'd rather connect with you separately if that's at all possible.
Sure. We will make that happen. Thank you, Nicola. I really appreciate that contribution. Grace, you said thank you and very insightful. Really appreciate it. And then I think there was a question from Abdurrahman. How can we link AI to our majors and specialization in the most appropriate and efficient way? Um, Can we take that last question, Simran, or is it too late?
Yeah, I'm good. If you're good on time, please, David. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that. So uh, Abdulrahman, I see you're online. Maybe you want to explain your question a little bit more, because it might be in the heads of others. Abdulrahman, can you unmute yourself? Okay. Let me answer then the way I understand it. So how can we connect AI? I think there are two things. One is I would definitely go back to your university and once you do a major and kind of like challenge in that sense also your faculty to implement more AI in it. The problem is, of course, like when you look at the cycles for the way that content gets approved in university, it might take quite some time. I'm also on some an advisory board for a university. It takes time before it's implemented. But often there are options for guest lectures and stuff like that where you can learn from industry experts. So I think that's a good way. The second one is, just like I said, embrace it. Also stimulate university, embrace it, because there's something called BOOAI, bring your own AI. And we know that employees, that about 85 to 90% of all the employees are using AI for work. I'm pretty sure that by now students, that probably 100% of all the students are using AI for study. So it's also kind of like smart universities, smart educational institutions, they embrace it and they put policies out there on how to use AI in a responsible way.
No, I think that's perfect. And I think it doesn't only have to be academic curriculum, like we've been saying. I think it can be other sort of pieces of that, talking about the people element that Nicola brought up rightly. So I think just going to the right people and having striking up conversations can also be a very strong learning curve. Professors that are from the majors, you don't have to necessarily catch them in a classroom. You can meet them outside as well and talk about this alignment, right? So sometimes we wait for the structures for too long, and those structures are built from many processes that take time, such as curriculum building and actual academia. But it's always good to remember that people element and just go and ask any questions you have, I guess. Perfect. I think those are the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, David, for your time. I think it
Welcome.
was
Thank
an
you.
amazing session. I surely have started my week on a very high note. So thank you for that. I just want to tune into the audience for a second as well and say that our next session is on 16th, which is next week, Wednesday. It will be on agile mindsets. So sort of taking the context of what David's spoken about to then applying it into mindsets that we can implement in our daily lives and frameworks. So tune in for that. I've put that on the chat as well. And we look forward to hearing from many people during Signal. And thank you, David, for your time and for your expertise.
Welcome. Thank you.
Amazing. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely week ahead.
Thank you.